Hello, everybody. How's it going? Animal Farm in 1984 aren't anti-communist. Animal Farm is literally pro-communist, but critiques how revolutions can be co-opted. Yeah, it's been a long time since I've read either 1984 or Animal Farm. We're not going to do a deep dive into the books themselves, but we're going to look at Orwell, um, and his life as a person. Um, and we are also going to at least look a little bit at his book, Homage to Catalonia, and yeah. Hello, fellow Trotskyists, Hoxiests, Maoists, Posadists, Bordagists. Um, I can't think of other weirdos right now. Yeah, from what I remember and what I've been told, Animal Farm kind of infantilizes the workers, especially through the eyes of the horse, which I think Hakim talks about in his video. Um, but the content of the books is not as important as I think understanding Orwell himself. But we're just gonna watch the video and then we're gonna take a look at some other things as well about Orwell. Love how we basically only had several anecdotes when it comes to Orwell, but Comrade Hakim finally brought all the relevant sources on Orwell into one video. Um, yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, I'd read articles in the past about Orwell, especially a great Ben Norden article that we're going to look at. But it's yeah, it's fascinating that there's, to my knowledge, never been a significant video actually released talking about this more in depth because there's a lot to the guy that is just completely whitewashed from history, and he's just portrayed now as this communist freedom fighter. Um, from what I know, he didn't do much of any actual fighting. He was in an area in the front where he was not actually in battle for the most part. He was shot in the neck, but for the most part, he was not actually involved in the battle. The organization of which he was a part, the POUM, was not, for the most part, involved in battle. And we'll talk more about the POUM too, because it's quite silly. I had to read Orwell and I had to read Ayn Rand. I read Ayn Rand's Anthem. I read 1984. I read Animal Farm. I don't know if I had to read Animal Farm, but I did have to read 1984. Yeah, I don't know if the Hakeem mentions that in this video, but yes, the CIA did help disseminate George Orwell's works as they did with Trotsky, as they did with um, what's his name, Arthur Koestler, um, and apparently Arthur Koestler also helped give names to the British government, not just Orwell. The other very famous anti-communist also helped give names to the British government. And we're going to talk more about that because there's a lot to that. Um, but yeah. All right. So check it out.
He began his career as a British imperial official in Southeast Asia, basically a colonial cop. He was a little conflicted by his role, but not out of a conviction against the evils of imperialism and colonialism, but because the, and I quote, yellow faces, as he called them, didn't look kindly at him. In the end, the sneering yellow faces of young men that met me everywhere, the insults hooted at me when I was at a safe distance, got badly on my nerves. Who would have guessed that being an occupier wouldn't get roses rained on you? His entire write-up basically drips of hatred for the local Burmese, as well as a backward logic where imperialism wasn't bad solely because of the processes that made it up, but because the colonized expected a certain attitude of a colonial official that Orwell himself found difficult to fill, apparently. Let's quote the man some more, shall we? All I knew was that I was stuck between my hatred of the empire I served and my rage against the evil-spirited little beasts who tried to make my job impossible. He repeats this pattern often, says something incredibly racist, but turns around with a, oh, but I don't really like empire all that much either. Between uninspired
The fact that he says, "Oh, the whole, oh, I don't really like Empire that much either," is kind of dishonest when you take into account the fact that he literally gave a list of people to the British government. And here's the thing, here's the ultimate thing, like, say you genuinely believe the Soviet Union is bad, you genuinely believe the Soviet Union is not good in any way. Do you believe the British Empire is good? I know the British Empire post 1945 didn't have the incredible power it used to have, but why would you ever cooperate with the British government at all? Why would you ever, in any manner, in any form, try to help Great Britain in any way? Like, that's the thing. Like, you can say, like, oh, but, even if you believe the USSR was bad or not socialist, I don't believe that. But even if you believe that, you're just going to collaborate with the British government and give names to the Information Research Department, which is an anti-communist propaganda outlet, anti-colonialist propaganda outfit as well. Orwell writes in this how he was like conflicted and his nuanced opinions. He literally gave these names to an outfit that was explicitly anti-colonial, anti no, anti-colonialist propaganda, so pro-colonialist propaganda. Oh, thank you, DACA, for the RSD 250. Um, I'm not sure what RSD means, but I appreciate that. I must say, Orwell's homage to Catalonia is what turned me into ML. So at least some good things came out of his writings. Yeah, we're gonna take a look at a couple passages from that book as well. So
and unconvincing prose about disliking empire, though he still found it quote unquote respectable, whatever that means, he falls with, I thought that the greatest joy in the world would be to drive a bayonet into a Buddhist priest's guts. Mighty authoritarian of you, Eric. Hold on, if he hates the Burmese and uses these terms, then surely a self-proclaimed socialist would have even harsher words for the most notorious fascist of all, right? Let's have a look. I should like to put it on record that I have never been able to dislike Hitler. I have reflected that I would certainly kill him if I could get within reach of him, but that I could feel no personal animosity.
there's no context in which that is a good thing to say. There's no context in which you can say like, oh, that's like out of context or like that's like not the full story. Like he even shows the full story. He says Orwell would like to kill Hitler, but at the same time he's like, I've never been able to dislike Hitler.
The fact is that there is something deeply appealing about him. One feels, as with Napoleon, that he is fighting against destiny, that he can't win.
Yeah, this whole passage is amazing. I read it. He is the martyr, the victim, Prometheus chained to the rock, the self-sacrificing hero who fights single-handed against impossible odds. If he were killing a mouse, he would know how to make it seem like a dragon. One feels as with Napoleon, he is fighting
And
against
yet that
destiny that he can't win, and yet that he somehow deserves to. One feels as with Napoleon that the Zodiac killer is fighting against destiny that he can't win, and yet he somehow deserves to. One feels that, as with Napoleon, that Charles Manson is fighting against destiny, that he can't win, and yet that he somehow deserves to. So bizarre.
That he somehow deserves to. Jesus fucking Christ. The simplest benchmark for any reasonable human being is to have a burning hatred for fascism. But apparently, even that's too much for Orwell. Instead, in the height of World War II, he says the
A lot of this has an interesting context when you realize that, which I think I cut out at the beginning, Orwell came from a relatively rich family, and his parents were colonial officers. So he's clearly not at all able to let go a lot of his fascist pro-colonial tendencies at all. He just he can't, and it's clear.
willingness to criticize Russia and Stalin is the test of intellectual honesty. Yes, echoing many a reactionary and liberal in red paint we see today. That's not to say that one shouldn't criticize, etc., etc., but there's a time, place, and format where it's most constructive, if your criticism is good faith to begin with, and the middle of a fascist takeover of Europe and beyond isn't it. See my video on left-wing anti-communism for more about this perspective. Let's move on to his list making. Orwell reported on his friends and acquaintances to the Information Research Bureau, a dedicated organization within the British government founded in order to publish anti-communist material and fight revolutionary, anti-colonial, and pro-independence movements. This office not only got the rights to Orwell's works, but also directly translated and published Animal Farm and his other garbage works into 20 languages on every continent on Earth. In fact, Orwell's entire literary reputation is due to direct CIA and other anti-communist organization efforts at popularizing his nonsense, which is telling because his work on the face of it really is unimpressive. Regardless, back to the list. He lists Paul Robeson, arguably one of the most famous people of the past century, airbrushed out of history because of his communist leanings, as very anti-white, a Wallace supporter, in his snitch list, with zero evidence either in reality or within his deluded mind, aside from a typical racist presumption that wanting non-whites to be treated like human beings must mean you hate all whites as well. He diligently notes Jew and Jewess next to people many times incorrectly in a time where European Jews had just faced the Holocaust. Deutscher, Polish Jew, Dryberg, Tom, English Jew, Chaplin, Charles, Jewish? My guy, why is this so important to you? It makes you think. He also kept a paranoid list of names for himself, by the way, with the same weird pattern reproduced. Some liberals like to pretend
Yeah, I think only a list of like 37 names or so have been released, but apparently there's like another 80 or so that are like that haven't been released. I'm not completely clear on the details, but I don't think that's even the full list. I want to see the full list of all the names.
that the lists were only to prevent these people from working for the Secret Service, but naivety is a liberal pastime, and so is absolute faith in nefarious institutions like the IRB, which played a significant role in things as diverse as the Suez Crisis and the Troubles. Why you wouldn't want people who could sabotage the propaganda efforts of an empire you supposedly hate so much, I have no idea, but it is telling. You'd also have to be incredibly gullible to think lists of leftists, anti-colonial figures, minorities, etc. were done in good faith and for a good purpose. Regardless, as a liberal darling, all of his obvious ignorance and suspicion of Jews, LGBT people, and blacks is skated over without a peep or mention. Had any other post-war leftist made remarks of this kind, you'd for sure know about it, and their problematic nature would litter the prefaces of their published works. Yet, no mention. Liberals are so intentionally blind.
Yeah, there's a great passage from a taken from another article in a Ben Norden article where he talks about this. There seems to be general agreement by Orwell's fans to skate gently over Orwell's suspicions of Jews, homosexuals, and blacks. If any other post-war left intellectual was suddenly found to have written many diatribes about blacks, homosexuals, and Jews, we can safely assume that subsequent commentary would not have been forgiving. Here, there's barely a word about Orwell's anti-Semitism, or about his crusty dislike of pansies, vegetarians, peaceniks, women in tweed skirts, and others athwart the British way. The racist drivel about Robeson and about George Padmore, Negro, African origin, expelled about 1936, main emphasis anti-white, arouses no comment. Then there's the IRD, an outfit that at the time of Orwell's list making was strenuously reaching out to Ukrainian nationalists, many of whom had enthusiastically assisted the Nazi Einsatzgruppen as they went about liquidating Jews and communists. One IRD man working in this capacity was Robert Conquest, a big Orwell fan and Kerwin admirer. I discussed his role in an exchange with him in The Nation in 1989, when I remember Hitchens said he'd read closely. Yeah, I mean, it's just like if anyone who was not Orwell did something like this, if anyone who was anyone other than the darling of the left communists, the darling, and of the right wing, because of course he's also loved by right wingers because they also see his works in their own way. And that's why I called him a useful idiot in my video about
line that they claim his attempted rape of his adolescent girlfriend was a quote-unquote botched seduction.
that's why I call him a useful idiot, because even if his best intentions were to, um, even if he truly did have good intentions and he truly believed the Soviet Union was bad for socialism, he still was just his works were still used and are used today because ultimately, and I'm going to talk about this in another video I'm releasing, being anti-socialist state is being anti-socialist. The whole point of being anti-socialist state is to create in the mind of the people anti-socialism as a whole, because left comms fall into this trap where they're like, oh, that's not real socialism. That's not real socialism. We'll do it great next time. We'll do it great next time. I promise. And then, Pete, that's where the meme comes from. It's not real socialism. Because they'll just say everything isn't real socialism because they really want to appeal and, to the people who are moral purists like they are, who can't stand the idea of a single thing going wrong. So, yeah.
In which he had shouted, screamed, and kicked before running home with a torn skirt and bruised hip. Yes, that's apparently a botched seduction to liberals, when a 190cm tall man corners and forces himself onto a tiny 150cm tall woman. Back to the video in just a second. Let's hear from today's sponsor, Atlas VPN. For a lot of research that I do for my videos, I end up hitting pages that aren't available. Alright, back to the video. That's not it though. Arguably, his magnum opus, Animal Farm, was written in 1943 and 44, yet not a mention or room in his mind for condemning fascism as it was ravaging Europe, with the only power at the time actually kicking Nazi Germany's teeth in being the Soviet Union, which he spent the entirety of the war as well as his life condemning and satirizing. At the same time during the war, the IRD, which he would work for, was making connections with Ukrainian nationalists, of which many directly aided the Nazi Einsatzgruppen as they went about the program of a mono-ethnic Ukraine without Jews, Poles, Gypsies, and communists. There's even evidence to suggest that Orwell knew and approved of this. To quote a great article you should read, Isaac Asimov also points out a shocking fact that conveniently escapes the myriad disciples of the British author. George Orwell spent the peak years of genocidal destruction of World War II writing a childish story about how evil the Nazi-killing Soviet Union supposedly was. As Asimov points out, Orwell wasn't much affected apparently by the Nazi brand of totalitarianism, for there was no room within him except for his private war with Stalinist communism. Consequently, when Great Britain was fighting for its life against Nazis,
As long as their personal ideal of what socialism is pure, they can always take the higher moral ground with absolutely everything without ever having to lift a finger. Yeah, and I think I feel like that's why so many, it seems like, of these left communists, in my experience, are upper middle class, um, college educated, comfortable in life, because I feel like that puts them in a position where they don't feel that urgency of like actually doing something, and they don't understand. In comparison, I feel like so many MLs, at least in terms of YouTubers, they're all working class. Like Finnish Bolshevik, he works in a factory. Fellow Traveler works in a factory. Hakim is a physician. I believe Danky Kang is working class. And it's because these people, they want something done, They want something done. They want something better. And they actually see in other socialist states the hope of something better.
and the Soviet Union fought as an ally in the struggle and contributed rather more than its share in lives lost and in resolute courage, Orwell wrote Animal Farm, which was a satire of the Russian Revolution and what followed, picturing it in terms of a revolt of barnyard animals against human masters. He completed Animal Farm in 1944 and had trouble finding a publisher since it wasn't a particularly good time for upsetting the Soviets. As soon as the war came to an end, however, the Soviet Union was fair game and Animal Farm was published. In fact, Orwell went out of his way to manufacture a fantasy that couldn't possibly be mistaken for Nazism, because, as everyone knows, the people and ideology that materially supported every single genuine liberation and independence movement in existence are the true evil. Of course, not a single line critiquing American genocidal policies globally, or their constant warmongering and saber-rattling, and their sanctions and bombing of poor third world countries trying to detach from colonial regimes that had oppressed them for decades if not centuries. Nothing on the Spanish or French or Portuguese. His only genuine vitriol and whatever passed for criticism, oscillating between childish storytelling and verbose ranting, was exclusive.
I mean, that's a bit of an oversight, given that Orwell literally went to Spain to fight the fascists, even though he didn't really actually fight much.
Exclusively
But
reserved for
we'll get to
socialist
that.
countries, and specifically the USSR, a country he never visited, never read about, and never interacted with the politics of. This point can't be understated. Orwell actually knew next to nothing about the USSR, and the misconceptions and ridiculous caricatures he reproduces both in his writing as well as his commentary are so easily corrected by the lightest possible research as to essentially solidify the fact that he was simply happy in his ignorance. Or insidious, one or the other. By the way, if you thought Animal Farm critiques Stalinism or whatever other made-up concept, it doesn't. The fundamental thesis of Animal Farm is that the working class is stupid and cannot be trusted to lead any sort of independent political existence. To quote Jonas Manuel, a Brazilian organizer and professor of history, Orwell spends the entire book describing generations of animals as easily confused, dumb, stupid, illiterate, amnesiac, the entire book. The main target of this book's critiques aren't revolutionaries or communism, it's the working class. George Orwell writes from an aristocratic ethos. Elite theory posits the people as incapable of self-governance, without the capacity to constitute themselves as a political subject, and therefore always the object of dispute and manipulation by vying elites. The people lack the capacity for political self-determination, cannot build a political program or engage in autonomous political action. This is George Orwell's theory, borne out by his choice of metaphors. Animal Farm isn't a critique of revolutionaries, it's a critique of workers. It's an aristocratic manifesto against the working class. This book, Animal Farm, is a deeply reactionary book, displaying aristocratic condescension against the people, a book in which the working class appears as imbeciles. It displays all the marks of the bourgeois genre of elite theory, its historical metaphors for Soviet history, whitewashed capitalists and imperialists. The USSR is shown as self-sabotaging while its enemies are completely absolved. This is George Orwell and is why he was so successful. I highly recommend you read the article. It's great and full of citations to further bolster the point. I don't want to subject you to excerpts of Animal Farm, after all. By the way, his hatred for the working class was even noticed by the people who fought beside and absolutely hated Orwell in Spain. 1984, on the other hand, doesn't even deserve to be commented on. To quote Asimov again, I read it and found myself absolutely astonished at what I read. I wonder how many people who talked about the novel so glibly had ever read it, or if they had, whether they remembered it at all. I felt I would have to write the critique if only to set people straight. By the time 1984 came out in 1949, the Cold War was at its height. The book therefore proved popular. It was almost a matter of patriotism in the West to buy it and talk about it, and perhaps even to read parts of it, although it is my opinion that more
I would say the only particularly weak part of this video is just the fact that he keeps talking about the prose. Just in terms of like, I feel like prose and like that kind of thing is somewhat a subjective thing. Like some people will like the way a book was written, other people won't. So it's kind of just like it's not necessarily an objective fact. But I don't know. Maybe it is really boring. I haven't read it in forever.
people bought it and talked about it than read it, for it is a dreadfully dull book, didactic, repetitious, and all but motionless. I generally recommend you read this entire review as well. The critique is excellent and really goes to show not only how bad the book is, but also how the literally 1984 types don't even bother to engage with the book, and of course the incredibly ineffectual and childish criticism of vague or otherwise undefined symbols of power. Keep in mind though that Asimov himself is a liberal at the end of the day, so some of his politically oriented comments suffer the usual deficits. Of course, the elephant in the room, that Orwell would love to shoot, is his supposed leftist convictions. To quote a fantastic article from Red Sails, it is mistaken to imagine that children in the English-speaking world get Orwell's work drilled into them like a mantra because somehow genuine socialists managed to sneak his work past a censor that banishes the likes of Karl Marx and Malcolm X. From the beginning, this supposed socialist had published everything he could in a personal crusade against Marxism, as opposed to his preferred quote-unquote respectable English social democracy. This fact did not go unnoticed by the CIA and practically every other anti-communist outlet that existed. To quote,
I mean, I think his book Whig and Peer or whatever it's called, I think that is a pretty anti-capitalist or anti-UK book. Road to Whig and Peer. But it's also been a long time since I read that.
between 1952 and 1957, from 3 sites in West Germany, a CIA operation codenamed A Dinosaur launched millions of 10-foot balloons carrying copies of George Orwell's Animal Farm and dropped them over Poland, Hungary, and Czechoslovakia, whose air forces were ordered to shoot the balloons down. Even the Animal Farm film, forcibly shoved down millions of kids' throats the world over, was entirely financed by the CIA, a secret they kept for decades. It was entirely produced in Britain too because the CIA feared that plenty of talented animators wouldn't go along with such a blatantly anti-communist message. The very script and ending was edited to be even more negative and anti-communist afterwards, as the CIA thought it still seemed too sympathetic. All in all, Orwell was just a garbage person. Personally, politically, professionally, the human equivalent of a clogged toilet. To quote Parenti, safely ensconced within a virulently anti-communist society, Orwell, with Orwellian doublethink, characterized the condemnation of communism as a lonely, courageous act of defiance. Today, his ideological progeny are still at it, offering themselves as intrepid left critics of the left, waging a valiant struggle against imaginary Marxist-Leninist-Stalinist hordes. May he and his ideological progeny rot like their brains often already do.
So yeah, I think it's a pretty good video overall. Um, he definitely doesn't hide his feelings about Orwell. But yeah, so people obviously had certain individuals had negative thoughts about this video. Um, there were a couple posts on the subreddit. Um, this passage is just fucking priceless. Our dude here basically clip chips Orwell out of context at only 1 minute 31 seconds in. These people cannot operate in like in any way that isn't debate streamer like lingo. Clipshamp. Orwell died in like the 1950s. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? You can't clipshamp. Oh my god. Then proceeds to misread and make strong, assertive claims about Orwell that only a tanky would. Okay, no specific rebuttal of anything Hakim said, not a single rebuttal. For anyone top V fans, okay, so now he's making an Andrew Tate reference with the top G, of course, that have read Orwell. Spoiler already here. Hakim will make you want to do the Roblox. These fucking people can't speak normally. Holy shit. They cannot fucking talk like normal human beings. I've no doubt that Orwell was no angel, but to completely misread the meaning and purpose of his text, and then to proceed to so strongly posit a superior moral position is Blad philosophy tier kind of shit. So no rebuttal, no factual or evidential rebuttal of anything Orwell said, obviously. Uh, so yeah, so like this guy says, Hanky's still mad because his list contains names like Peter Smollett, who was a Soviet spy. Keen's only loyalty is to a dead authoritarian regime. Yeah, we're not. No one's mad that he talks about Jews. He talks about pansies. He talks about anti-white black people in the list. It's like okay, and again, he was or George Orwell was working with the super capitalist right-wing British government. So like it's just ridiculous. Like even many left communists will admit that the USSR was like they'll say it was like a social democracy, right? Or like a something along those lines, or state capitalist. But 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 so it's just amazing. Both of these groups don't understand his works. Okay, that's another bizarre thing. It's like first of all, death of the author. I mean, in many ways the reader can comes to understand, but like when we look at Orwell's actual life, like I don't think they're wrong in thinking that Orwell basically was just obsessed with the USSR and hating the USSR, and that's what his books were about. He literally wrote in his review of Mein Kampf, "I have to confess, I've never been able to hate Hitler." Like, I mean, yeah, the fact that he had more criticisms of USSR than Nazi Germany in the 40s just shows his true alignment. It's similar to how Trotsky in like 1941 was like calling for a revolution in the USSR, like right on the eve of like before the USSR was invaded by the Nazis. Trotsky still was like, "What people rise up against the evil government and create a true socialist republic." And it's like, okay, what would have happened if there had been an attempt at a revolution in 1941 right before the Nazis invaded? They would have destroyed everything. Orwell wasn't a great person. Yes, he had problems, but he was way better than the average person. How? He was a colonial officer. He worked in the British propaganda department in World War II. He literally fantasized about killing Buddhist monks, like when he was a colonial officer. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? He did an attempted rape. He reported homosexuals and black people to the government. Has anyone here actually watched the video and has refutations of his specific claims? You can disagree with his opinion on all those things being bad, but it's not like he's lying. The problem isn't the truthfulness of the claims in the video. The problem is that Hakim is a fucking Stalinist who thinks Joseph Stalin was an absolute goddamned hero. Okay, George Orwell was a rabid anti-Soviet person who thinks Stalin was a monster. Everyone has a different lens. It was made to promote the notion that because Orwell had unsavory views and ratted out some Stalinists at the very end of his life, his criticisms of the mass murdery, autocracy, and political terror of Stalin's regime are invalid. He didn't just rat out Stalinists, he ratted out people for being anti-white. He apparently ratted them out in part for being Jewish. So, yeah, funny stuff. And a lot of people frame what happened with Orwell in terms of going to Spain and is that he went to Spain as like a general socialist, not against the USSR, and then the POUM was attacked by the Soviet-aligned revolutionary communists, and then and that's what made Orwell like an anti-Stalinist, anti-USSR guy. That is completely wrong. That is completely not connected to reality. As you can see here, he joined the POUM, right? It was formed by the fusion of the Trotskyist left of Spain and the workers' and peasants' bloc. The POUM was formed as a communist opposition to the Stalinist form of communism promoted by the Soviet Union. He was not made into an anti-USSR person by the POUM or by Stalinist repression. He came to Spain already with the lens of being against the USSR, already with the lens of hating Stalin. He was a fucking Trotskyist. He literally joined a Trotskyist organization. What's really fucking funny about this Trotskyist organization is that even he admits. So he says, the communists, this is in homage to Catalonia, the communists had a definite practical policy, an obviously better policy from the point of view of the common sense. And the day-to-day policy of the POUM, their propaganda and so forth, was unspeakably bad. It must have been so, or they would have been able to attract a bigger mass following. No, it wouldn't, Orwell, because Trotskyist organizations never have ever gained a significant amount of power, at least as far as I know. They don't gain, they didn't ever really gain a lot of attention or influence. Um, so the fact that he's being like for example, Trotsky himself in the USSR, he never gained a huge following against the Stalin bloc in 1922, 23, 24, 25. In the lead up to when he was exiled, he never gained a lot of influence. He was just extremely loud and extremely obnoxious. Um, so yeah, what clinched everything was that the communists were getting on with the war while we and the anarchists were standing still. The communists had gained power and a vast increase of membership, partly by appealing to the middle classes against the revolutionaries, and partly also because they were only people capable of winning the war. So he openly says here that the fucking the communists, which is well, what he means by communists is what he means by communists is he means the he means the Soviet Union aligned group of communists. So yeah, um, but he openly just says they didn't have influence, they didn't have power. So it's like it's funny. My mouse has suddenly disappeared. That's annoying. So the whole idea that he became disillusioned about the Soviet Union or whatever because of his time in Spain. No, he came in there already hating the Soviet Union because he specifically joined a very small and very not influential part of the revolution in Spain, which was the POUM, which then got attacked by the communist side, and he frames it as the POUM being completely innocent. I'm sure that's complete bullshit. They were Trotskyists. They were fundamentally militarily opposed to the Soviet Union. So I don't understand what the Soviet Union was supposed to do in terms of like just allowing an explicitly opposed to the USSR organization. I don't know. And also it's just like yeah, I don't know. It's annoying. My mouse is missing. It's so weird. Here's more. Here's more. They were branded Trots and were ordered to be arrested by the Stalinists. They were not branded as Trotskyists. They were Trotskyists. They openly admitted they were Trotskyists. It's like, oh my God. These people go so hard to defend Orwell, where they go so hard to defend Orwell, where if it was someone they disagreed with, if it was someone they did not align in their opinions with, they would absolutely not support this person. They have to twist themselves into pretzels to justify their support of this person, right? The fall of the USSR should have been an opportunity to move on from that. What the fuck does that mean? The fall of the USSR was the worst tragedy for socialism. That was the only major influential socialist power. Oh man. There was one really funny comment I saw in here that I wanted to point out. I wonder if he'll mention that he gave up the list because someone he had proposed to came to him to ask for it while he was dying of tuberculosis. What? What the fuck? Why does that change anything? What the fuck? There's 60 upvotes. What does that mean? Oh my God. These people will just defend this guy. Leftist tired from all the drama lately. Can we please stop dissing on each other for 5 minutes? Hakeem, let me sing you the song of my people. No one starts more drama than the debate, bro, streamer community. The streaming debate community literally survives off of starting drama. So that's just so ridiculous. Well, in my perfect world, tankies wouldn't have a platform with which to spew nonsense. That's extremely funny. 8 upvotes. They're literally advocating for censorship. They literally, they literally, and that's such a funny thing about a lot of these like anti-authoritarian leftists is they'll openly say like Vosh has openly said we should arrest the entire Republican Party. He's openly said that on his stream. That sounds like an incredibly authoritarian and anti-democratic thing to do, my dude. Like they don't have any consistency. It's so funny. Oh, I fucking hate these people now. I fucking hate these people so much. Oh my god. Oh my god. I'm working on a video about the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact because there is no better example of the sheer extent of dishonesty of anti-communist propaganda than the Molotov-Ribbentrop Act. There's nothing. There's nothing that comes even close to how two-faced, how disgusting, how dishonest the framing of that is to this day. And then you have all of these leftists and socialists who just say the USSR teamed up with the Nazis. It's unbelievable. The thing is, though, he didn't really snitch on communists. He snitched on tankies that worked directly for the USSR as foreign agents, and that's based. One person in Orwell's list of around 37 people was apparently an agent for the USSR. A single person. That's an incredible comment. That's amazing. Hakim just knows that Orwell would have snitched on him too. I would do the same! Holy fuck! I would do the same! Oh my god, dude, these people are fucking fascists. Holy shit. 10 upvotes. I would do the same. That's fucking wild. Holy shit, that's incredible. My mouse is missing. It's very annoying. So I have to literally like predict where my mouse is. I can't just like, oh my god. Oh my god. There we go. Oh my god, that's fucking hilarious. This channel with 400 subscribers is talking about, says, I am so glad that when I asked to collab with him for my YouTube channel, he was taking a break. I seem to have dodged a major tanky bullet. My dude, you have 400 subs. What the fuck are you talking about? Like I don't want to like mock anyone for having a small following. Like I have a small following too, but to like frame it as like I was gonna collab with Hakeem, but it turned out that he was a tanky, so I'm glad I did it. That's amazing. I love these people at the bottom just asking like, can you point things that Hakeem says that are actually wrong or factually inaccurate? Silence. Nothing. Because they can't. Ugh. And the funniest part is that like, Orwell even writes um, in the book, and I hope the account I have given is not too misleading, consciously or unconsciously. Everyone writes as a partisan. Beware of my partisanship and the distortion inevitably caused by my having seen only one corner of events. And beware of exactly the same thing when you read any other books on this period of the Spanish Civil War. That is a perfectly fair thing to say, honestly. That's like a perfectly normal, um, respectable thing to say. But these people have just taken Orwell's writings, his testaments, his perspective on the Spanish Civil War, and they just completely believe every aspect of it. They just completely, you know, uncritically accept everything he ever said as the truth. And maybe, honestly, I should probably do some more reading into the Spanish Civil War myself. But yeah, so pretty lame. Pretty lame. Anyways, I'm gonna try to fix my mouse issue. So I'll be back in a few minutes, and then I'm gonna talk about. I think I'm probably gonna talk about this YouTuber called Beau, the Fifth Column, and some really suspicious things about his past that are worth pointing out. So yeah. So I literally cannot find my mouse. So my mouse pointer. Oh my God! It literally just went back right when I said that. What the hell? I was literally trying for the past like 5 minutes to get my mouse pointer to appear, and then it just finally appeared again. All right, give me a couple more minutes. Oh, my mic was off. Hey, so yeah, I don't know what was going on with my um mouse, but whatever. But yeah, briefly, if you want to support me, um, if you want to support me, you can subscribe to me on Patreon, or you can do so through YouTube. You get cool emoticons. Kawa is still the only chem head in terms of subscribing through YouTube, so if you want to give them some company, um, they're very lonely, so I think they'd appreciate it. You get early access to my videos. You get all the same benefits that you get if you subscribe to my Patreon. Early access to my videos, unique Discord role, that kind of stuff. Unique channel in the Discord. Anyways, please, I'm very lonely. I find it hilarious that 1984 was supposed to criticize communism, but is just a criticism of authority, and as such, reading it during my formative years probably helped make me a communist. Well, there you go. That turned out well. So take that, Orwell. So there's a oh, thank you. Hello, Sparkle Squish. Awesome. Thank you. Now we have two. Beautiful. Love to see it. Kyle was not alone anymore. Okay, so there's this guy named Beau of the fifth column. He's very popular.
Well, howdy there, internet people.
Um, he's got 800,000 subs, as you can see. So he's very popular. He's very influential. Um, he's just a guy
It's
who
Beau
talks.
again, and this is what
Literally, his format is like literally identical every video. He's just a dude talking in front of his camera. He's just a small town, everyday relatable guy talking in front of his camera. Um, but he's actually pretty shady as fuck. So we're gonna talk about that. I've wrecked him to right wingers from the South before. Yeah, I mean, I don't know too much about his politics other than he seems to be he calls himself an anarchist. Um, but we know other individuals who also call themselves anarchists and are not anarchists at all. Um, but yeah. So I wrote a script for this. I think I pretty much finished the script, but to make a video. But his fans are very. He has a very large and aggressive fan base, let's say. So um, I last time someone tried to do this a couple years ago, Mike from PA, he got a lot of shit. Bad Empanada talked about this more recently. Um, but yeah, it's a fucking ride. It's a fucking ride. So I'm just gonna read from the script. So there's a common narrative on the internet, particularly in socialist circles, that various leftists online are actually feds, which is short for federal agents. This arises out of very real historical context when the FBI used to heavily infiltrate socialist groups, where at the height of the McCarthy era in organizations like the CPUSA, around 1 in 10 members were a federal agent. I don't believe the vast majority of leftists on the internet these days, but even suspicious ones, are literal feds. But when there is an abundance of actual evidence to imply they might actually be, then that's a different story. Such is the case with Beau of the Fifth Column, a very popular politics commentary YouTuber with over 800,000 subscribers. This might sound incredibly outlandish first, and I want to iterate up front that this is all speculation, but just bear with me. Beau is lesser known by the name Justin King. Born in Japan, he was in a military family that moved around the world. At some point, though, Justin fell in his 20s, I believe. Justin fell into a scheme along with three Russians in Florida, forging visas to traffic women from ages 18 to 23 from Eastern and Central Europe to America to work in hotels. The Eastern Europeans, the Russians, I mean, already ran this labor supply company that would recruit girls from Romania to fulfill the needs of local hotels. But when Beau got involved, they changed the nature of the business to now start forging visa applications to increase the volume and speed that they could get the workers into the country. Um, the business was quickly pretty successful because they gave the hotels cheaper contracts than anyone else. These workers were all temporary and all went back after the contracts were up. This was an intentional part of the criminal strategy, since it meant the workers would rather wait to go home than complain to cops about the operation. By constantly replacing the victims, no one would be committed long enough for the trade-off of getting involved with the police to be worth it. In total, at least 72 women. I've heard numbers from 70 something to 200. There's a bunch of court documents about this that I haven't delved into fully, but in total, Justin had forged around 2,000 visas. Um, in total forged around 2,000 visas. Eventually, however, Beau got caught. He was facing 65 years in prison for his crimes, and as the law says, for like non-terroristic crimes, you get up to 10 years in prison for forging a single visa. He forged 2,000 visas, and this was on top of also just facilitating an entire operation of trafficking these women, transporting these women, arranging their jobs. So he didn't just forge the visas, and he wasn't just a small part of the operation. He was a major part of the operation. He was like the leader of the operation, and he talks about this in his resume. He doesn't say what he actually did, but he brags in his resume about what he did in a way that makes it not criminal. So yeah, and so here was his conviction. Justin King, sentenced to 41 months in prison. He took over the role of negotiating new contracts with hotel owners, communicating with state and federal agencies, and broadening the conspiracy. So he expanded the operation. 72 aliens entered the country under fraudulent visa petitions. He harbored another 39. And he was working on trafficking an additional 1,600 people. So he was trying to get another 1,600 fucking people into the country. So, yeah, pretty wild. So, but things get weirder and far fucking weirder. Um, so after he was convicted, his sentencing was delayed. Um, so his sentencing was mysteriously delayed. Um, and then he was sentenced to the 41 months in prison. No fines, no restitution, and only $700 in total counts. Also, while the government had originally sought $3.12 million in forfeitures, they settled for $1 million from all defendants. And then they also gave back two houses that had been seized from Justin King. So as this person says, why would the feds voluntarily give money and property back to someone 3 months after they were convicted of seven felonies? It can take years and thousands of dollars for innocent people to fight these forfeitures, but for some reason the feds just handed all this loot back to King. Really? He made them work at a resort for free. Um, it wasn't for free, it was for minimum wage. One thing I forgot to mention is that what he was doing was he gave people a different impression than what they were actually going to be doing once they came to Florida. So these people who were coming to Florida, it was not like they were being misled into what their roles were actually going to be. I think he gave a rosier impression than what it was actually was. I also know that at least one case, according to court documents, but I assume he did this with multiple people, he had two separate companies filed, so he would make people work 80 hours a week instead of 40 and not charge them overtime or not pay them overtime because it was through two separate companies. So yeah, he wasn't some. So he portrays himself as like. We'll get to how he portrays himself. So, but the most suspicious part of this all is that the reason for why his sentence was so short, the reason for um, why all the property was returned is sealed. So they do not tell why Beau was just was given back his property. They do not. It's sealed. And then only after all of this, only after he gets out of prison, does he suddenly become a this anarchist activist, this environmental justice activist, um, talking in speeches about how the revolution is now, how this is the revolution. So very aggravating language, right? Which is something that feds often do. They speak in ways and they act in ways where it's very the intention is to aggravate. The intention is to get people to do violent acts, to cause destruction, or to about to be able to do that so that they can pounce on them or whatever. So yeah, after supervised release ended in 2013, he began writing blog posts in support of Anonymous. However, he gets called out by this blog post, is Justin King snitch? And then not long after that, he happens to move to Cincinnati, Ohio. Um, okay, so now here is where it gets fucked up. In a podcast, he openly lies about what he
What went on
says.
there with that whole incident there with getting your door kicked in? Was that because of something the company you were working for had done, or was that something that you were under investigation for? Can you detail that a little bit more?
Well, basically, I worked for a company that did refugee recovery. We got refugees out of bad countries, whether it be Eastern Europe, Central Asia, wherever. We started working in Uzbekistan, and this much is my personal theory. Uzbekistan was a U.S. ally at the time. They were also really, really, really evil to Jewish people. We were getting them out, and we were visited by State Department, and they told us to stop. And I don't know if you've ever met any military contractors, but when you say something like that to them, especially when they've already been paid, you're likely to get, the middle finger, which is what happened. And they showed us. A few weeks later, we all had our doors kicked in and all got arrested.
Wow. So when you were a military,
So you can very clearly see what he's saying here and how he's framing things. That he was just helping refugees get out of Uzbekistan, which apparently isn't even the main place he was working in. It was in Eastern Europe. The guy just can't stop lying. He's a pathological liar. Um, Now, is there something else you notice about about him talking? Is there anything else you
Getting them
notice?
out, and we were visited by State Department, and they told us to stop. And I don't know if you've ever met any military contractors, but when you say something like that to them, especially when they've already been paid, you're like,
You might have noticed that he doesn't have an accent. He doesn't have any accent. But on his show, Beau the Fifth Column, where he portrays himself as this redneck Southern dude, he has a fucking accent. Um, so yeah, we'll get back to that. So in 2019, he started a YouTube channel called Beau the Fifth Column. Um, he sort of manufactures consent for war, but in a very fall reluctant, like we have no choice kind of way. Um, Again, I haven't watched too much of his actual content, but that's the impression I've gotten. The channel is almost immediately highly successful. An article found that his account was boosted in the algorithm. So this is kind of a dumb article, but it's also incredibly interesting at the same time. So apparently, this company was apparently
Likely to get,
accidentally.
middle finger, which is what happened.
This
And
company apparently accidentally boosted Beau of the Fifth Column. They found out after the fact that this company was accidentally quote unquote boosted Beau of the Fifth Column's channel. Um, so it's just an interesting coincidence that these kinds of things would happen. Um, so another thing about Beau, his name. Um, his name Fifth Column, right? That literally means to undermine a group from within. That's the literal definition of fifth column. So you might say now I'm becoming like conspiratorial, right? Like, oh yeah, yeah, obviously who would actually be like a fucking infiltrator and literally put in their name fifth column? But that is right wingers, infiltrators, they love to mock. They love to make fun. They love to embarrass. And and like with the Uzbekistan thing, um, but yeah, so I don't know if you guys have seen, Philion has a video called Bored Bored Ape Nazi Club about the NFT. Oh God, I didn't want to see that. About how the NFT Bored Ape Yacht Club
It's
was
unethical, the practice of
all this time filled with all this Nazi imagery and these Nazi crypto and all these different Nazi references, like insanely filled, like everywhere. Like there was no way it could be a coincidence, right? So they love to troll in the open. They love this kind of stuff. They love, um, and that isn't the only time he's trolled his audience. And the video I'm about to show you, um, is incredible.
Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Beau again. I talk about what's wrong with the world so much. People are asking me what kind of world I want to live in.
Look how fucking southern his accent is. Look how southern and redneck his accent is compared to him in the podcast interview.
I never really answered before, not because I don't have an answer, but just because it's so simple it sounds silly to say it. I just want to be able to sit on my porch and drink homemade whiskey while I use my phone to order a pizza that's going to be delivered by a drone that I'm paying for with cryptocurrency that was mined using renewable energy. And I'm ordering this pizza because the newly married interracial gay couple next door is coming over to introduce me to their recently adopted refugee child.
What do you guys think about that? Do you think that's like a normal thing that a normal leftist says that isn't trolling? You guys think that's something that a normal leftist would say who isn't just openly trolling? Our accent changes in severity depending on who you're talking to, but in the podcast, it doesn't sound like he has any accent. Like there's a no accent, right? I think, and again, that's a small part of an incredible amount of things, right? That's just a small part of like a bunch of different things. But anyways, let me just play that again.
I talk about what's wrong with the world so much. People are asking me what kind of world I want to live in. I never really answered before, not because I don't have an answer, but just because it's so simple it sounds silly to say it. I just want to be able to sit on my porch and drink homemade whiskey while I use my phone to order a pizza that's going to be delivered by a drone that I'm paying for with cryptocurrency that was mined using renewable energy. And I'm ordering this pizza because the newly married interracial gay couple next door is coming over to introduce me to their recently adopted refugee child. Now, he's a refugee from a natural disaster because we don't have war refugees anymore. They're bringing dessert. They bought it at a bake sale benefiting the K through PhD community run school that is free for all and stays fully funded because people understand that education is a community asset.
That sounds Southern to me. Well, no, this is the video where he's Southern. The podcast years ago is where his voice doesn't sound Southern. It's not, yeah, I don't know if is that what you're confused about? Because I think again the accent thing is just one part of a bunch of very suspicious things, which taken together are when you take everything together, how he was in jail, he was facing 65 years in life, and then he only got 3. He got all his assets given back to him mysteriously, and the reasoning for these assets being given back were sealed. Some people say that, yeah. Okay, but let's go back to the podcast and here and talk more in the podcast. Where is it? Oh man, where is it? Here's another one of him speaking, and another one where he apparently has no accent.
That to your eye, 2 days later, it's still going to burn. So you want to get out of the area, change clothing, wash yourself. If you have a mask, get it on. Now, when we're talking about gas masks, the gas mask is only as good as your filter.
That's your kid. That's your kid.
The podcast interview is clear for his voice, but there too, he has no
What
accent.
went on there with
Spent at Montgomery Federal Prison Camp, which if you have to go to prison, I highly recommend it. Tennis courts. I had a dog. There's no fence.
No
It's
accent.
when people say club fed,
Zero
that's
Southern
the place
accent,
to
unless
be.
I'm missing
was
it.
a joke.
Zero
And
Southern
most of
accent.
the people there were the ultra wealthy. Gave me a good view of the disparity in justice system.
Oh, yeah, I had a guest on earlier, well, I guess last year now. At this point, Michael Santos, he actually spent 27 years in very
Smuggling conspiracies they'd ever busted. And I got pretty much the max sentence I could get, which was like 41 months. Meanwhile, some 19-year-old kid that drove
He just lied again. He's again like really stretching the truth. Like I think he's saying he got the max sentence he could get, which is 41 months. Yeah. Because so I know he moved to Ohio. I don't know if he moved away from there. I think he moved back to Florida, like North Florida. Um, but I don't know. Let's just keep going. So yeah, he says, I just want to be able to sit on my porch and drink homemade Miss whiskey while I use my phone to order a pizza that's going to be delivered by a drone that I'm paying for with cryptocurrency that was mined by renewable energy. And I'm ordering this pizza because the newly married interracial gay couple next door is coming over to introduce me to their recently adopted refugee child. You cannot, with a straight face, tell me he isn't trolling people with lines like that. It sounds exactly like a line out of 4chan, making fun of leftists. But he's being sincere when he says
After
this. The
lunch, a
comments
nurse friend
are full of people drinking it up and talking about how inspiring his words are. Um, and yeah, everyone wants a nicer world. Everyone wants a beautiful world where everyone cooperates and gets along. But um, again, it just sounds like a complete troll. And again, it's not alone. It's just kind of a goofy. It just sounds like a goofy kind of you know, kind of just a weird anarchist take with the cryptocurrency and all that stuff. But when you take everything together, it starts to get very weird. So he rarely in any way talks about his past on his channel. When he does, he keeps it vague enough by saying something like, I smuggled aliens, to give the impression that he might have done something good and noble. In this video, he said,
One of the questions that pops up kind of often, am I a convicted human trafficker? No, of course not. That's stupid. Convicted alien smuggler. There is a difference. There is a difference. Um, I know about the blog. I've read it. It is entertaining. Um, most of what is contained in it, like 95%, is utterly false.
he is referring to this blog. He is referring to this blog, right? This blog has screenshots of court documents. It has links to court documents. It is filled with actual specific evidence backing up the claim that he is making.
Fact check it. Fact check it. I know there's a theory that I wrote it as kind of a teaching tool because I am known for going over the top to prove a point. As much as I would love to claim credit for that, that's not true. That was put out by somebody in 2013 who was operating at the behest of somebody who was angry because I wouldn't interview them. Uh, that's where that came from. The reason I never sent a letter, because it is plainly libelous, the reason I never sent the letter is because it is a good teaching tool. It shows exactly how the use of official documents and putting them in a false context can easily lead the reader to believe something that is.
So he spends this whole video saying these documents are false. This person only made this article because so I wouldn't interview someone. Does he put any evidence on the screen? Let's look if he puts any evidence on the screen. He says 95% of the documents are false. Let's see. Nope. Nope. Nothing. Nothing on the screen. Let's see in the description. Any evidence in the description? No. In the comments? No. If people suspect you of being a federal agent, you should probably actually address that by if you say an article is 95% wrong, wouldn't you want to actually address the blog post? Wouldn't you want to actually you know, with evidence debunk the blog post? But he doesn't do that. He just says it's 95% wrong. He says it's libelous. Why would you do that? Why not just take the suspicion off of you?
Isn't true to draw the wrong conclusions. Um, yeah, like I said, I'm just starting at the top of it. No, that's not the right charge. No, I didn't take a deal. No, I didn't get out in an abnormal amount of time. I didn't get a short sentence. All of this stuff is easily fact checkable. I know there are people that want to know about it. No, no, it's irrelevant to what I'm doing today. And I know to you guys it's interesting. To me, it is something that happened more than 10 years ago. Um, I'm also not going to put myself in the position of defending myself in the comment section against any baseless accusation that comes along. So, no.
Baseless accusation. It has plenty of evidence. It has plenty of specific evidence pointing out everything. Like he doesn't address any of it. Later in that same video, he says, come on, please load.
Well, howdy there, Internet.
He says, I go by...
About that and what I did and stuff like that. Whatever the public record says is what I'm going to say is true.
You just said the article is 95% false, and then you said, I'll go by the public record. Whatever the public record says is true. You are so fucking dishonest, dude. What are you talking about? The article, the blog post has screenshots of the public record.
Regardless of whether or not it is. I think the reason that industry in particular is having so many problems and is looking around going, you know, where are we going, why are we in this handbasket, is because people don't know when to shut up.
So yeah, those few that know to any extent what he's actually done will then defend him by saying he served his time, he changed. But first of all, serving 3 years and not being fined in any way for practically enslaving nearly 100 people is not actually serving your time. And secondly, he's lied about it repeatedly. Then when the blog point is pointed out to him, he just says it's 95% wrong. How? Prove what's wrong about it, but he doesn't. For his 800,000 sub video, he again talks about factual inaccuracies, but he still doesn't address any of the actual factual inaccuracies with evidence. He constantly talks in the video about moving forward, not being stuck in the past. But the reason people are stuck in Beau's past is because his past might still be relevant to his present. Because people have concerns that Beau might have become compromised. If he wanted people to stop bringing this up, he could, properly address it, actually debunk the claims being made when he says they're false, but he doesn't. He says he's handled explanations poorly in this video, but he never admits that he lied. And again, he doesn't actually address what he did in the first place. And it also doesn't matter whether you agree with his politics or not. Like, even if you say his politics are good, if the government was secretly funding a person to deliver a specific narrative, it doesn't matter how good or not their messaging is, it still deserves to be known. Of course, if everything about Beau's story was identical, except that he was right-winger, would these people really be going so hard to defend him? No, of course they would not. It's because Beau says things that people like to see and hear that they defend him. Does that Bored Ape Nazi Club video still exist? I think it's soft blocked on YouTube because I think if you try to look it up on YouTube, it doesn't come up. You have to look it up on the internet for it to come up. Yeah, it's soft blocked on YouTube. It doesn't come up. Which is weird. Yeah, I'll post the link in chat. So yeah, in the end, he lied to countless women to make money, and rather than stop lying, he's continued to do so. He's lied about his past. He's lied about his accent. Clearly, Beau is a pathological liar, and he's good at it. He ran a massive criminal operation for years. He's clearly no stranger to running massive, highly dishonest operations. Beau of the fifth column is likely just yet another one. So another reason I wanted to just put this in the back of the stream is because, like, I don't know, like, if he is, like, literally a Fed, which who knows, I don't want to draw their ire, so I kind of just wanted to, like, hide this in a stream with a different title, because there's a lot of very weird coincidences, and there's just a lot of it's just a lot of weird stuff, you know. Have you seen Pogan's outing? The only thing I know about Pogan is that like fellow traveler debated him or something. Is he is he a fucking fed or something? Nothing's coming up. Is there like a video or something? If anyone has anything else worth watching or talking about, let me know. I'm checking something out right now. My feed is laggy? Huh. It says my stream quality is good. I sent link, but it did not come up. I came for the molding libs. Well, I'm afraid you missed it, my friend. The molding libs are at the beginning of the video, not the end. Um, yeah, this tweet was something. So at least 102 children as young as 13 were found working overnight shifts using hazardous chemicals and cleaning brisket saws at 13 plants in 8 states. The U.S. Department of Labor has fined Packers Sanitation Services 1.5 million for these violations. That's just insane. I cannot believe that that's literally happening in America. Like, America is not okay, man. And this is fucking wild too. Like, I just cannot believe there are trains that look like train tracks that look like this. It's just insane. I think Trump got an easy W too by just like actually going to East Palestine before um Obama did.
People of East Palestine and to the nearby communities in Ohio and Pennsylvania, we have told you loud and clear, you are not forgotten. You are not forgotten. We stand with you, we pray for you, and we will.
So yeah. So just like a complete um easy W for Trump. Richest country on earth. It's the richest country on earth if you're rich, for sure. I feel betrayed by YouTube for not showing me this until now. Smash that bell, baby. Just gotta smash that bell. I kind of want to find out about this Pogan guy, what the deal is about him. It's literally all just Logan Paul. The rest of the world really does need to come together to do East Germany shaped things to everything north of Mexico. It's a fair opinion. That's a fascinating link. Yeah, I finally got around to watching Fellow Traveler's video about the DDR, and I was fucking blown away how um, impressive the DDR was.
Project New American Left is intended to create, disseminate, and promote social media content of a generally leftist and anti-establishment position. The project involves use of criticism, academic research, and investigation of competing social media narratives to further the organization's operational goals. Content focuses include the People's Republic of
is this music in the background? I'm so fucking confused what's going on right now.
China, PRC, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, DPRK, the former Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, USSR, and domestic organizations/groups of Marxist or Marxist-Leninist ideology. From January to February 2021, approximately 16 personnel were assigned to the project for undisclosed purposes and
What the
lengths of
fuck?
time. These personnel have since been detached from the project.
So he
The project is now operated exclusively by the Central New American Left Command Structure. In July 2021, users on the social media platform Twitter began alleging a connection between Project New American Left and various law enforcement and intelligence agencies operated by the United States federal government, including the Central Intelligence Agency and Federal Bureau of Investigation.
Wait, so he accidentally I'm very confused because this is so edited over. So he accidentally posted that to his main YouTube channel or his Twitter? Center of Ukrainian internet names? It's so blurry, I can't see anything. And later brought it back, so he deleted it and then he put the video back up? Or what? I'm so confused. So is he still operating on YouTube or no? That's wild, dude. He had what? It said he had like 4,500 subs or something like that. That's crazy. I would like to. I wonder if his videos are still up. I'd like to watch them to get a feel for like what that kind of person acts like, you know? The problem with chasing down leads on what other X random YouTuber or media personality is not or not is that we lose either way. Even if we expose an individual organization, what do we get out of it except for wasted time and resources, increased stress and paranoia due to the psychological pressure of constantly needing to keep an eye out for potential ops? Maybe a slight feeling of moral superiority. Nobody outside of our communities actually pays that much attention to these content creators at the end of the day. The masses don't care about this online drama stop shit. And the only online people who care about counterintelligence establishment to suppress or split leftist discourse are already leftists themselves. I mean, he's making good points. Like, yeah, I mean, I think it's worth exposing the guy, but yeah, it's very paranoia inducing and like disturbing, you know? Like it is kind of just a lose-lose because they do have like infinite resources. And even if you just expose one off, they can just start another. This guy's spitting. I don't even disagree. Even though I just spent all my time talking about Beau of the Fifth Column, I don't even disagree. I think the thing about I think the thing about Beau is that he's so influential. He has 800,000 subs. So his domain was registered in Ukraine. That's fascinating. Fascinating. It's just all gone, wiped from history. Oh yeah, Beau is gigantic compared to Hogan. So there's actually a decent amount of definite worth in talking about Beau, um, and what he's doing and what he's done for sure. New American left Hogan. I believe Beau used to be an anarcho-capitalist too, or like a libertarian. So he was like an anti he was like an anti he was like a sock done left kind of guy, like an anti tanky sort of socialist. Seems like all these fucking feds are anti tanky socialists. It's very funny. This is fascinating. I want to know more. I want to know more. So is this an account making fun of the American left? Or is this actually Pogan's account? Wayback Machine. Twitter.com/proganist. Oh, fuck off. I have to log into Twitter like on the screenshot or some shit. No. Wow, everything about this guy is like gone. He just completely got wiped off the earth. Alright, so this is this is apparently a podcast that is not related. Weird shit. What's Beau's Twitter like? Why the fuck would an anarchist be like retweeting retweeting CNN? Fascinating. Yeah, I mean, he generally seems to express, pretty leftist positions, but again, it's just like the sheer amount of just like insanely weird coincidences and all the suspicious stuff around him is just very suspicious, obviously. He's also following Trump. I mean, he's pretty anti-Trump. Um, Following someone is not a huge indication of much. If you want to snoop on someone, the best way to snoop is to go to their likes, not their follows. But I doubt he'd do anything really suspicious on his public Twitter account, even like anything suspicious. Yeah, I think he also is loosely associated with the Vosh crowd. He's not close with them, but as you can see, he's liking a tweet from Merrick, who is the girlfriend of Sock Done Left, and Sock Done Left is very close with Vosh. So he definitely has associations with that whole crowd. Oh, look, he's liking a tweet of a conversation between Bosch and Marion Williamson. Yeah, so I mean, oh my God, that's so funny, dude. he seems somewhat anti-Cold War, anti New War. So it is hard to pin because his politics. Again, I have not done a deep dive into his politics, but overall, on a surface and even a bit of a subsurface level, it doesn't seem that weird his politics. But there's just so much weird stuff going on. Yeah, I don't know much about Marianne Williamson either. Um, who knows if she's full in with Vosh or hardly knows who he is and just saw he had a big platform and wanted to talk with him. But Beau, who's very online and YouTube and shit, definitely knows a lot more about Vosh. Yeah, so and again he's an anarchist, but he's he loves Biden. He's that kind of guy. That kind of anarchist. Don't talk about he's liking tweets about people saying, "Don't talk about American imperialism." Again, I could be completely wrong also about Beau. I do not know, but I do not give him much credit because I personally am pretty damn convinced that there's something up with this guy. So I'm not giving him much credit because all right, so this guy's former military. He's talking about how Americans have little or no choice to join the military because, you know, when you could just not join the military. What? There are a lot more jobs in the military where your participation in violence is really removed. Every traffic stop is a violent action? Every single traffic stop is a violent action, but the guy who is serving ice cream in the Navy or fixing trucks on a domestic base really doesn't have to examine their participation? Who the fuck are these people, man? If you're fixing trucks in a domestic base, who knows where that truck is going? It might be going to a foreign base in another country, or it's just delivering supplies between bases to help the military machine keep functioning. No matter what you're doing, you are in some way helping the military machine if you're a part of the military. Also, you're not part of the military if you're fucking serving ice cream. I don't know what that's supposed to mean. So here he is, yeah, saying, oh, but they joined for economic reasons. Irish left with Ukraine. Yeah, man, this stuff is weird. Big red celt. TikTok. I'm doing research live, man. I'm looking into this shit live. There's liking another American Sophie. There's liking a Robert Evans tweet, who I've heard from multiple people is like a Fed. Does anyone know anything more about that? Because I've heard that a few times. I don't know about the whole um, dynamics of that, though. Oh, hey, Pogan's whole YouTube channel is archived. That's fucking wild, dude. His whole fucking channel's archived. That's insane. Hakim is wrong about North Korea. Yes, the Soviet Union was imperialist. Yes. Oh my god, this guy is literally just every fucking fake socialist talking point, like at the very front of this. That's so incredible. And then they have the how Cuba beat American imperialism, because Cuba is the one thing that they um, will defend, because it's so hard not to defend it that if you don't, you're clearly come off as just an idiot or a fed. Literally, all his videos are just attacking tankies. This is so funny. No, you shouldn't be a tanky. Hakim is wrong about this. China isn't socialist, which maybe not. I don't know. I have to read more about that. Failure of North Korea. Debating destiny. Oh my fucking god, dude. Oh, he talked to Vosh? No fucking way, dude. Oh no. So this guy is clearly affiliated or follows and likes the tweets of Vosh, of Robert Evans. Um, I'm not, by the way, this guy, it was just someone he was liking the tweets of. I'm not saying he's anything. I don't know anything about him. I'm just checking him out.
Hey y'all, it's Celt. So Mutual asked a question about misinformation and propaganda. So let's go ahead and answer that. Roll clip.
So I have a question, and this is for Disinfo Gal or for.
Oh, this video is 10 minutes long. Jesus.
Hey y'all, it's Celt. And there's a new report that came out about the voting in California during the midterm elections. And of course, the conservatives have something to say about it. So let's roll tape.
Did you know that California sent out 22.5 million ballots for the midterm elections, and as of right now, 10.8 million are unaccounted for? And what do you think is going to happen?
Favor 10K this week.
Hey y'all, it's Celt. And I got a favor to ask. See, I'm getting really close to 500,000 on this platform. And I am really excited about that. But I have another goal that I'm working on this year. And that goal is to get this one to 100,000 this year. It's only at 8,000, so I know 100,000.
And every day's a dream when I'm carrying your love with me.
I'm carrying a gun with me.
And every day's a dream when I'm carrying your love with me.
I'm carrying a gun with me.
Kind of weird. Maybe I'm reading into it too much.
Sorry, I don't talk in a woo voice. I don't know what you expected me to do.
Yeah, but it looks like Hogan's videos won't come up. That's sad. Oh, you know what? That's also interesting. He made a video calling out the Pat socks like Caleb Maupin. So like that's very interesting. So if he is a actual if Hogan actually was a Fed or whatever, it clearly shows that they're not beyond attacking Pat socks, which is interesting. Maybe because the thumbnail's here, I might be able to watch the video. Oh, fuck. Sorry if this is boring. I'm just like pulled into this now. Like I really want to like fucking see if I can find anything interesting. Bellingcat runs an NED money, and the NED is a CIA front, so anything said by anyone working for Bellingcat should be taken with multiple packets of salt, and Robert Evans is Bellingcat affiliated. Yeah, um, I don't know if there's specific things he said or messaging he's put out that is weird. I think he's another anarchist, or My friend was saying he's like an anarcho-nihilist. Like he posts like chaos star imagery, um, which is kind of weird. I'm not expecting to find any like bizarre smoking guns or anything. It's just interesting to see. I think what I talked about in the video when I was going over everything really fucking speaks for itself for the most part. Something something Hakim is white should have been bombed more something something. Yeah, I mean, it was mostly just Hakim's a tanky. Did you know Hakim is a tanky? And tankies are bad. Hey Ty, how's it going? I'm just Twitter stalking someone right now. It's interesting how many of Merrick's tweets that he likes. Robert Evans seems to deny the US does coups. Didn't listen much. Does he really fucking do that? Holy shit, that's incredible. Hey Ken, would you debate Haz? Absolutely not. Haz is a complete idiot. He's a right winger who obfuscates the things he says by like quoting Marx and all this shit. He is connected in some way to LaRouche. Lyndon LaRouche was a fake communist like back in the 70s and 80s who um, um, portrayed his movement as like oh, what's the word? I'm totally blanking out right now. God, my brain is completely just. I think I just think of Hawes and my brain shuts down. No, he's not good. And if anyone is telling you that Hawes has good ideas, or Hawes makes good points, or then be incredibly suspicious of them, and also you should probably be re-examining um, a lot of things about your own worldview if you're listening to Hawes or watching Hawes, because he's basically just a wrecker. I'm quiet. Okay, I'll raise the volume. That should be better. Um, yeah, no, I don't want to debate Hawes. I don't want to really associate with him. Are you a fan of Hawes, Ty? Absolutely not. Yeah, well, I would recommend not even bringing that up because it's yeah, he's not good. LaRouche was a trot and he hates on them constantly. Well, I think Hawes has referenced LaRouche positively in the writings of LaRouche. I think there are associations with LaRouche. They have a new name for the organization now. They have a new name for the organization now. I forget what it's called, run by LaRouche's wife. And LaRouche's wife's organization was at that fake anti-war rally with Jimmy Dore, and which Jackson Hinkle also went to. And um, Jackson Hinkle, of course, is associated with Hawes. So, yeah. Schiller Institute? Thank you. Schiller Institute. Wait, they're located in Washington, D.C.? That's funny. This is a neo-fascist cult. Let's look at the Facebook reviews for the Schiller Institute. Oh my God. Yeah, I don't know how much of Hawes's and their audience is just genuinely misled and how much of them are legit. Because, like, I feel like some of them are just misled, and then a lot of them are just like, yeah, like, we're all just like, we know that we're not good. This is a neo-fascist cult. Stay away. What the fuck is this shit? They're talking about how it's like a multi-level marketing scheme. See, there it is. I recommend Schiller Institute for its knowledge of the facts and illustrates vision about a universal solution that's persistence and determination to reveal and promote the visions of Lyndon LaRouche, its loyalty to his faith and humanity. Oh man, the Schiller Institute sticks with truth. Jesus, I need food. I'm starving. Beauty always. Wonderful page with great ideas and activities. Have come upon many of these contemporary philosophers throughout the past, and now with Western civilization threatened by weakened leaders, one has the moral duty to become informed. God, these are like older people talking about Jesus and shit. I remember since spring 1993. Okay, yep, the Stop World War III. That's literally a Lyndon LaRouche dog whistle where they talk about World War III all the time. This is wild, dude. Who is that guy? Does anyone know who this guy is? God, this lady's still going at it. That's wild. Yep, World Land Bridge. That's what they talk about. World Land Bridge. Oh, is it Frederick Schiller? Well, that's the thing, Sweatshop Kid. They combine they combine their weird fascist shit with like some good fine shit. And so it really tricks you and it makes you think like, oh, well maybe these guys are just misguided or maybe they're like they're like they're smart on some things, but they're just like misguided on other things. But they really are just complete wreckers. And they're just more undercover now and more cautious um because of the suspicions about LaRouchites and stuff. But I used to think I used to look at these guys like Hawes and all that. I was like, I guess they're kind of weird and a little goofy, but they mean well, you know. Sort of like how Vosh fans do with Vosh. Like they'll just be like, you know, he says a lot of bad things and he makes mistakes, but ultimately he means well.
You probably don't know about it yet because the mass media are not covering it. But in reality, mankind has entered a completely new era already
It's
in
a
the
cult,
BRICS
basically.
countries. They are in process of realizing a completely new economic and financial system. China is building a new Silk Road which brings development and peace to all countries which participate in it.
So all of this stuff sounds fine, right? Like all of this stuff sounds perfectly fine, but it's all just fucking fake. Like when you actually read about who Lyndon LaRouche was and how he openly admitted to being like um an infiltrator later in life. He embraced radical right politics and anti-Semitism. Um, what was I going to say? Um, Revolutionary Left Radio has a really great, or I think it's Revolutionary Left Radio or Guerrilla History has a really great podcast episode about um, LaRouche and his movement. And I believe he also worked closely with the CIA. But anyways, yeah, the good info is a front for something. Yeah, I mean that's pretty much my interpretation. Like I went to the Center for Political Innovation, was Caleb Maupin's website, and I read their like their plan or whatever. It's like holy shit, this stuff is great. Like I was reading and I was like, oh my God, this is great stuff. But it's all I think it's all just like a pipeline to get you into their culty shit. Like yeah, like if they didn't have a fucked up past, like they wouldn't have changed the name to the Strasser Institute. Like why not just keep what it used to be called, like the LaRouche Institute? Well, it's because LaRouche literally like sent his people to attack other communist parties. People hated LaRouche so much that the fucking Trotskyists teamed up with the Marxist Leninists, and they teamed up with the anarchists, and all these people that hated each other teamed up to like fight off like the Rushites when they would attack them and shit. True left unity. Hell yeah. Thanks, LaRouche. Anyways, I'm kind of passing out at this point. I'm quite hungry, so I'm gonna head off. Thanks for watching, everyone. New video should be coming out this weekend. And if you want to support me, please, you can either donate or subscribe to me on YouTube or through Patreon, whatever works. I really could use the financial support. This channel could not go on long term without financial support, so anything you can provide would be an immense help for paying rent, for whatever. I really appreciate anything you can give. And yeah, thanks for coming out. And maybe I'll keep doing this like once a week, maybe even twice a week. I don't know. Only whenever I feel like I have something to talk about is when I'll come on. But yeah, hope you guys had a good time, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.